So MacBook Pros are kind of getting lapped by the competition, and I'll explain. I'm Scott with Techno Eclipse, and let's just get into the video. So the other day, I purchased this little beauty. For those of you who don't know, this is a piece of aluminum. Aluminium? Metal? We'll just go with metal. It is the Razer Blade Stealth, the 13-inch from 2018. It features an i5 8565U, 16 gigs of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage, NVMe storage, I might add, and then it also features the MX150 4 gigabyte 25 watt, the best MX150 graphics card that money can buy. It features a 1080p screen, which personally I'm okay with because it's so small, yada yada yada. I'll get into that later. Comparing this to a MacBook Pro, what made Apple so great, they're kind of starting to lose a little bit. So let me explain. Basically, I bought this laptop expecting to like it. If I'm being honest, I bought it because I was like, this looks like a really nice machine. I bought it for, I think, $800, and it's valued at around $1,200, maybe $1,100, especially this variant. So I knew I could buy it, use it, and if I really liked it, I could use the Thunderbolt 3 port on the side and hook it up to my eGPU, use it with my monitor, etc., etc. Then I could finally get rid of this computer behind me that I don't really like, and I can lower the price on a little bit so people will just buy it. If you want to buy it, hit me up in the DMs, fam. I can't even say that. I don't even know. Also, this is way too symmetrical for me. It's very uncomfortable. So basically, at the end of the day, what we're looking at is a very powerful laptop, a 13-inch laptop, which Apple also offers a variant of, and we'll go over that right now. So basically, for the same amount of money that you could purchase one of these guys brand new, a comparably spec'd MacBook Pro would feature an i5 processor, an 8250U, I believe, maybe some other variant like an 8256U or whatever, but essentially an 8250U. It's an i5 quad-core processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage, a much higher resolution screen, I believe 2560 by 1600, and then it also features no dedicated graphics card. And that is really what I'm going to hammer home in this video. Not only are Windows competitors and Windows OEMs starting to pick up the pace on Apple and starting to catch up on them, but I think that they kind of have passed them. Now, in my opinion, design-wise, MacBook Pros are still top-notch. I still think that they have the best design, they look the best, they have the cleanest look, the cleanest overall aesthetic of the computer, but design and beauty are not the most important things of a computer, especially when you're talking about a computer that looks very, very comparable to a MacBook Pro regarding this Razer Blade Stealth. And now there are also other laptops, the XPS lineup, the Surface lineup from Microsoft, and also the Blade lineup from Razer. Now there are also some other ones, like MSI has a couple thin and lights, but really we're going to focus on those three main players because they use aluminum, and those are the ones that look closest to MacBook Pros in my opinion. But not only have MacBook Pros been caught and have been passed, but they're doing it in a way that's actually cheaper. Now, obviously, with a MacBook Pro, you get way more than just the basic experience of a laptop where it's like everything else in terms of software you're gonna have to buy. You get more than that, especially when you buy a MacBook Pro. You get all the access to iCloud, which you do have to pay, but you do get 5 gigabytes for free. You get access to their entire Microsoft suite of apps in terms of Pages, Keynote, yada yada yada. You get access to iMovie, you get access to GarageBand, all of these apps that Apple gives you for free, you get access to. And now there's no real Windows counterpart to a lot of those. Now I know that there are some that you could download that are similar, but not nearly as good as the Apple version of those pieces of software. Also, another thing to remember in terms of performance, when you're running pretty much every Windows laptop, and this one is no exception, when you're running it off of battery, the performance normally dips. When you're looking at an Apple laptop, it doesn't dip. The power delivery is typically a lot better on Apple laptops and worse on Windows laptops. When I was running Geekbench, I was getting roughly like 11,000 to 12,000 on the multi-core side. And I was like, man, that's awful low. I wonder if there's something in the BIOS I have to tweak. Didn't touch anything in the BIOS because I was like, well, let me plug it in and see if that will work. And then the CPU scores jumped all the way up to 16,000. So really what we're looking at here is a little bit of disappointment in terms of power delivery from Razer. But there are obviously a lot of advantages to Apple computers. the trackpad is really good. But the trackpad on the Windows laptops are getting a lot better, especially when they use Windows Precision drivers. And on this laptop, it's no exception. Now, I will admit there were a couple of times when I was moving my finger across the trackpad and the mouse would stay still. It happened like 2 or 3 times and it would glitch out for a second, but then it would basically just start working as normal again. So I'm not sure if that's just my laptop that I bought or if that's just a Windows issue, but I do want to mention that because no computer is perfect. But when looking at the Razer Blade Stealth and the Razer Blade lineup in general, you're starting to question where Apple is getting their pricing from. Now, I know Apple uses all of its hardware to its biggest advantage in terms of they have really good mental support for their apps. A lot of Adobe apps are sometimes more optimized for macOS, and that's mainly due to the fact that there aren't very many powerful computers that can legally run macOS, and there are way more powerful computers that can run Windows, so it's like, well, it's a lot easier to upgrade and get a way more powerful system when using Windows when you compare it to macOS and any macOS-based computer. So basically what we're looking at here is a company that has surpassed Apple in terms of performance, in terms of design, in terms of aesthetic, and in terms of just raw usability. You're talking about putting a relatively good GPU in here. Now the MX150, the 25 watt, is nothing to write home about, don't get me wrong, but when compared to a 15-inch MacBook Pro, don't forget other companies put in RTX 2070 Max Qs inside of their 15-inch computers. You're getting performance from this laptop with the MX150 that's very similar to the RX 555X. That is absurd for a $2,400-$2,300 computer to have very similar GPU performance to this guy is just sad. And now I understand, yes, this costs a lot less. It doesn't have a 6-core processor that the MacBook Pro has. There are a lot of advantages, but in terms of just raw design and the overall way that the computer looks and how it functions, Apple has gotten caught. And I think they've been passed in a lot of cases, and they've been passed with companies doing it for sometimes $1,000 cheaper with way better performance. We're not talking about 10% performance gains, 5% performance gains. We're talking about companies that are literally releasing laptops that are less money than MacBook Pros, that in terms of CPU performance is getting very similar performance, but then on the GPU side, I mean, you're talking about jumps of almost 2 times as powerful, 3 times as powerful in some cases. It's getting a little bit silly, if I would say so myself. And it's a little bit frustrating to see, as somebody who's a big fan of MacBook Pros, to see them take so much care of how quiet the computer is and the overall design aesthetic of the computer, and not worrying about, you know what, cut 2 holes at the bottom of the computer. We don't care. I want better performance. For the same price of a Windows-based computer, I should not be able to only get an i5 with 8 gigabytes of RAM and no dedicated graphics card. That's just absurd. I know the touch bar, whatever, I know that exists, but this is absurd. It's frustrating, and it's like this weird realization that, oh my gosh, Apple makes you spend too much money on their MacBook Pros. I've always known that, and I understand that MacBook Pros just cost more money, but like, really, Apple? You need to have a company that used to build mice and keyboards past you in terms of laptop design aesthetic? Obviously, the trends, they always trend towards each other. Look at iOS and Android. Android used to be this crazy open source software that was really ugly, kind of this glitchy, laggy type thing. It had this negative stigma behind it. Whereas iOS was super user-friendly. It was easy to use, but it was almost too user-friendly and really locked down. And as the years have gone by, they've really started to almost reach a middle where Android looks really good. It's super user-friendly, but still customizable. And Apple is really user-friendly, kind of customizable, and still obviously a really good operating system. But they've definitely moved towards each other, with Apple letting you use your own keyboard, and they've let you put on widgets on some sides, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But we have seen those two meet. And now that's the same thing with Windows OEM laptops and MacBook Pros. MacBook Pros, when they first came out, made Windows laptops, they looked terrible, cheap, and ugly. And up until the last about 3 or 4 years, I would say the same thing still rung true. They were super thick, super ugly, terrible design quality, and honestly just a total disappointment, especially when compared to a MacBook Pro that was equally as powerful, if not more powerful, in a way better design and a way better footprint. But as the years have gone by, we begin to see the trends sort of meet, and we've seen companies like Razer release a 13-inch laptop with a dedicated freaking graphics card that's making Apple look kind of dumb. It's frustrating to say, but the MacBook Pro has just sort of lost its footing. It's not what Apple has done. It's not that they just suck at making laptops. They've built the best laptops for the last 10, 15 years, but you start to look at what they haven't done. They won't open up the bottom of their laptops to get some better fans in there. They won't do certain things that would just make the experience a lot better without sacrificing any design. Razer is willing to sacrifice design, and they're willing to sacrifice the closed look in order to get a better experience for the user, because honestly, you can't see this. This is always facing down, Apple. Put some cutouts in the bottom of your computer. I'm not asking for a lot. I'll do it myself with some scissors. I'll just go in there, just snip this a little bit, and then look at, you'll have better performance where you could fit 2 fans and you can put in a dedicated graphics card. I just wish Apple would push the boundaries a little bit more and push stuff instead of being brave and getting rid of ports. Why don't you be brave and put a dedicated graphics card inside of a 13-inch laptop? Why don't you be brave and go back to Nvidia for real power? Or why don't you be brave and release an ARM MacBook Pro? Put more money into the ARM line and advance those even further so we can have a MacBook Pro in the future that's going to make all Intel and AMD based computers look like little toys. That's it. That's my rant. This is a cool laptop. If you're thinking about buying one, I wouldn't say don't do it. There'll be a link in the description where I get money for it. So if you don't buy it, then I'll forever hate you. Obviously, I'm just joking. Thank you guys for watching the video. This is a cool laptop. MacBook Pros are cool laptops, but I think that they've just sort of lost their footing a little bit. If they just get more aggressive with their design approach, I think we're going to see some really cool competition from Apple and from other companies competing with Apple in the future. I'm Scott with Techno Eclipse. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.